Greetings, positive trenders. I hope everybody's having a blessed weekend. And here we are, season 2, episode 35 of the Positive Trends newsletter and companion video. So here we are, guys. I really want to say thank you again, everybody, for your support as we continue to rock these markets and have a lot of fun in the group, and it's been great. So this week will be no exception. Again, this week we're introducing the 80% 2.0 method. So we take the 80% method that we talked about in the last 2 weeks newsletters, and found a really great enhancement to it to help us find really high quality setups with great risk, or low risk, great reward potential. And I mean, the examples are just phenomenal. See them trade live this week. So really looking forward to that, and I'll show you some great examples here today. In the meantime, SPX, right? So they ended up turning that weekly chart green, if you could believe it. It was looking like a red shooting star candle for a while, and they turned it into what could be a doji sandwich, right? So doji sandwich, right? Up, measured move up, right? So that could support a potential end of the wave 2, right? So this was the impulsive move up right here. Here's your ABC, and we could be working on this wave 2, instead of being down here, right? Could actually be here. And so if that is the case, then and we get a doji sandwich up with a measured move up, this thing could just rock for a big wave 3 up. So let's keep an eye on that week. Let's keep an eye on that this week. Otherwise, right, we still have the 382, which hasn't been tested yet on this last move down, and of course the 618 hasn't been tested either, or the upward trend line. We are bullish till proven otherwise. Again, I'd like to see a little bit of a deeper retrace here to get the bears all excited and then squeeze them out. But we'll see what they have in store. Now, the SPY didn't have a lot of volume on this last candle right here, so it's not that exciting. But we'll keep an eye on the price action. It should be an important week this week. We've got some earnings coming up this week in retail, right? We've got the Walmart, Lowe's, those names, Target, and we've also got Nvidia reporting this week to wrap up the tech earnings season. So Nvidia is looking interesting. It used to only be on a Thursday evening after hours, and then kind of give a flattish type open on Fridays, but they've recently kind of shifted it to Wednesday, possibly so we can get a bigger move out of it. So let's keep an eye on Nvidia this week, see if AMD or some of the other names trade in sympathy with it, and kind of go from there. So that should be pretty interesting as well. So good stuff. So this newsletter starts out with another quote by Dalton, right? By Jim Dalton, and so let's go ahead and start with that. So the quote is, "Knowledge arises from experience. Just as a musician practices diligently to become a concert pianist, and an athlete spends uncounted hours on the court to become a great tennis player, a trader must gain experience through actual trading to become an expert trader." Imagine that. Any effective performance is a combination of knowledge, skill, and instinct. With each trade, you put on your knowledge, your understanding, and your experience on the line. You put your knowledge, understanding, and experience on the line to be judged by the market. Really, really cool quote right there, and it's so true. So, and that's what we do right here. That's the purpose of the newsletter and the group, to help increase everybody's knowledge, to help increase everybody's experience, so we can all grow together and help each other to become successful in the market. So when we do put that on the line, right, the market will hopefully judge us correctly, right, and favorably. So good stuff. So it was a pretty wild week last week, right? We had a little IPS syndrome there when Powell spoke Thursday morning. A little bit down move, possibly forming this wave C down, and then looks like they kind of came back to work and started buying a bit on Friday. It wasn't easy. There was some crazy divergences last week. We'll take a look at that. We'll look at the NASDAQ later, and we'll see what happens there. So, but anyway, let's get into the topic this week. So this week is 80% 2.0. I was going to talk about some other things, but it's just enough. I wrote enough here to dedicate to one newsletter on the 80% 2.0. So if you recall the 80% method, right, the 80% method is this, and I've had a lot of questions about it, and that's why I think it's a great time to review it. Right, the 80% method is when we gap above a value area high, right? So in this case right here on Friday, here was the Thursday value area, right? Here's the top of the value area range, the VAH, here's the VAL, here's the POC. We gapped above it, right? We gapped right here. Okay, the key consideration, the key thing that we're looking for is 2 consecutive 30-minute candles that test the top of the value area high. So did this happen on Friday? Did we get an 80% move on Friday for SPY? No, we didn't. It didn't even test the value area high. It got a little lower shadow close to it, which is pretty cool, right? And it ended up working its way up pretty nicely. We got a bullish go bar on the 30 chart. And that's another thing that we're looking at too, is these 30-minute candles really kind of tune out a lot of noise and can be very, very helpful when looking for these setups. So So anyway, the point is with the 80% method, right, we need two consecutive candles that test either the value area high on a gap up or the value area low on a gap down below, right, the ranges, below the ranges. And then we look for a trade through the value area range. Now, Dalton said that there's an 80% chance that it goes through the entire value area range. We're going to be a little bit more practical with it. We're going to be a little bit more precise with our entries. And what we're doing is we're using the AVWAP. In the newsletter, I have the VWAP on there. It's okay. They open up at the same levels intraday on most of the charts. So it just shows the reasonable level on that one. On the futures, obviously, it's going to be way different, right, because there's a lot more data. But just so you know, I don't in the newsletter the AV app is a turn on because I had to go back and go to each day and plug this stuff in. It's a little bit harder to do an anchor off of the open on each day, but they're essentially the exact same thing. And it makes sense to use the AV WAP for an entry. Why? Well, the entire volume profile is based on volume. So why wouldn't we look for entries using a volume-based indicator? Right, so it's a great tool. And then, of course, we could use our price action after that. And then when we have our stochastics on the side, our special stochastic, our Fibonacci stochastics on our side, it just enhances the probability. And so it's really, really cool stuff. And so that's what we look for. So we look for a price action setup around the AVWAP in the direction of the value area that we're trying to trade into with a slow D on the 15 SS that is moving in that direction. And ideally, the K above or below the D in the direction that we're trying to go. Okay, so cool stuff. So that is kind of a summary of what we're looking for. And then instead of going through the entire range, we're looking for the pivot, right? We're looking for the next pivot. We can ignore the clouds. Right, the clouds. We're not looking at them as resistance, right? Because there's a bigger, there's a bigger concept in play than just the intraday clouds, right? And in fact, those clouds, once we pierce those, as we know, on with bigger clouds, and especially on gaps up and down, we're going to see those clouds a lot on the 15-minute chart because we're gapping above it, right? Chances are that price moved and is forcing that cloud up, right? So we just want to pierce into that cloud, and once we get into that cloud, it can actually be kind of like a big air pocket for us to get through, which is pretty cool. So let's take a look at some examples. So a couple things too, as promised, I put a cheat sheet in the market profile folder with all the different scenarios we talked about last week, and it includes the 80% method. Okay, so let's take a look at Boeing. This is one that I traded this week. I did not post it publicly because it was a little bit too risky. I didn't like how the options were moving. Boeing can be a little bit funky sometimes, and I ended up taking a small profit on it. But wow, did this thing launch and really prove the theory incredibly this day, right? So this is on the 12th. Okay, so what happened this day? So here we had a value area right here. Here's your value area low. Right, and did we gap below it? Yes, we did. Here's the opening print right here at well below the value area low. And then we had two consecutive candles that tested that value area low with some lower shadows right here. And then notice what happened. Just the pure price action itself, we had an inside 30 that went up and launched. Okay, but what else we're going to do is we're going to go to the 15-minute chart. Right? We can refine it also off the 5-minute chart as well. We're going to use our indicators to our benefit. Right? So look exactly what happened right here. So again, this is what I love about this method is it gives you at least an hour to find the setup. It's not going to happen right at the open. We want it to be like, oh, okay, everybody pile in real quick. I mean, as fun as that is, and we can get some great moves off of it at the open, this gives you at least an hour, right, for a setup to occur. So it gives plenty of time to stock these things, right? So it's a really, really cool tool. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get some indicators on here and maybe like a watch list script so we can look for them and stuff like that so they're easier, they stand out a little bit easier for us, but it's cool. We'll get there. So basically, this is what we're looking at. So here's Boeing, right? Look what happened. We had a rising slow D. Okay, that's bullish. So we're looking for an upward move to get through that value area range that we just looked at, right? We want to get through this value area range. Did it go through all that value area range? No, it didn't, but that's fine, right? Pivot level makes a great target. Okay, so we had the rising slow D right here. That's great. And then we use our AVWAP, right? As long as we're holding this AVWAP, the AVWAP is actually an entry point, right? We could have got in, remember your first 4 candles is your first hour of the day. So that was your 2 consecutive 30-minute candles right there combined, right here, right? I can just kind of highlight it right here. So that, you were not even trading in this range right here. So at that point, we want to look for setups. We had an inside 15 here that tried to take it up right here. It's okay, right? We could have entered there. That would have been fine, right? We would have had risk. Our stop would have been below the inside 15 candle. No big deal. The ideal entry is a tag off of the AVWAP. And so we could have got in here on the initial move off the AVWAP to go in, right? We could have got in here on the retest of it too, which ended up forming a triangle here, right, on the lower time frames, right? So it ended up being like a real nice triangle breakout on the 12th, right? So we had this nice triangle right here, and then boom, see ya, right? So very, very nice move. But even getting in right here, and like I talked about, I got an entry about $2.30 on the 180 calls, right? Right at the money right there, no big deal, right? So $2, these things went up to like $5.40. What a beautiful move, guys. That's a double on that trade just to get to the pivot level. Imagine if it went through the entire value area range. That would have been an epic trade, right? But I'm okay taking profit at the pivot, at least raising stops, right, at that point. And then, of course, there's an inside 15 right here, which ended up reversing down. We had a crossover right here, and I mean, the trade was over to the upside. But what a great move on Boeing. So that was that's the first example that I give in the newsletter. Okay, and I also showed the options on that one. So another one, AMD on the 11th. Let's take a look. Okay, so AMD on the 11th. This is a great example of one that didn't work, but still worked in our favor. So the cool part about this is, and the way that volume profile traders look at it is they normally look at it as like, okay, if it doesn't work, then the sentiment is the other way. What a great way to trade, right? It gives us so many opportunities right here. So if we go off the 11th right here, let's take a look and see what happened, right? So we gapped down huge, right? Blah, AMD getting crushed, right? And then we gapped up over the value area range. How do we know that, right? Look at that, the opening prints right over the value area range. Remember, we always look back to the day before, okay? Now this is where things get cool, right? The next candle was an inside 30. Okay, but it didn't do anything, right? And look at this. Here's the level right here. Did that inside 30 tag that range? No, it just missed it. So this is not a consecutive candle right here. So that invalidates that, right? So now we got to wait for 2 more consecutive candles if it happens. And it did. Here and here. Okay, so we tested that range right here. And look what happened. It did not give us a move through the value area range. This is a failed setup. So this is not something that Dalton would have been like, okay, 80% roll. This is a 20%. This is one of the 20%ers, right? Just didn't go our way. Well, not for us, right? Because let's look what we're going to do here, right? So what happens is that this is a failed move. So we can actually look for long setups, right? Because let's think about what price is really trying to do, right? So remember, price is just an advertising mechanism. Just because the price is there doesn't really mean it's all about where traders find value, right? Where market participants find value, institutions, algos, all that stuff, where the value is, right? So here's your last value area high up there. So the real point is that at this point, right, we can assume that they wanted to try to at least, see if there was more value up here. Of course, we had a big drop zone right here, which is a great level to test. Great target, right? Okay, so let's take a look and see what happened on the 15-minute chart here on the 11th for AMD. Okay, so here's the 12th. Let's go to the 11th right here. So let's look at what happened. Remember, the first 2 consecutive candles did not test that range. It was only that first 30-minute candle. So this is invalidated, right? So the next 2 were here, 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 and here, because, right, it's a half, right? It's a 15-minute chart. Okay, well, let's look at it. Well, what's happening? Well, I mean, at this point here, I mean, does it look like it's rejecting the AV WAP? No, I mean, it's not doing it. Right? It's not doing. So at this point, we can shift our sentiment to bullish, and we had a really beautiful candle here, increased volume over the AV WAP, right? And look at that. That moved its way up really, really nicely to the 15 orb high, and then it gave a bull flag with a failed bearish go bar, right? Failed bearish go bar is working its way up, and then look what happened. The slow D started working its way up, and then boom, we get to the pivot level right here, and we even get some follow through. So with some runners, what an incredible move this is. So the 80% 2.0 method can be traded in reverse as long as the price action calls for it, right? And you can see that right there. So just a really, really beautiful move right there. Name it. So that's a 20%er that is actually a winner for us. I love it. So where other traders give, oh, it didn't work, I stopped out. There was no even reason to be short, right? Look at this. I mean, that was a strong close above these candles. Even the 5-minute candle here on the 11th, right, at the AV WAP. I mean, it was just not going down, right, in that time frame. I mean, it was just beautiful. I mean, we were over the AV WAP. A bullish go bar right here on the 5-minute chart. This thing was ready. Bull flag worked its way up. Just incredible, right? Okay, cool. Let's look at a couple more examples so we can get real excited about this and trade these this way. I mean, there was multiple examples. And guys, just so you know, on the key list, on the go-to list key level videos, I'm analyzing volume profile every day now. So just in case we miss one, we can go back and look at it. Oh, wow, that worked. And wow, I could have got in there. And wow, this is awesome. Okay? So good stuff there. Let's take a look at a couple more examples from this week. And members actually traded well using these concepts this week, so that's great. Let's take a look at Amazon. Okay, so Amazon on the 30-minute chart. All right, so this was on Thursday. Look at this. What happened? Beautiful. I mean, it doesn't get nicer than this with this concept. Okay, so look what happened. So we had a value area right here, right, from the prior day. Always look at the prior day. We're not, I get a lot of questions like, oh, it's going through the value. Do we got 2 tags in the value? No, it's not the value area. This one. Okay. So we just, whatever is easier for you to do. If you need to put a line, through it, here just to show that that's the value area. It happened to correspond with this value area that day, but it makes sense. Okay. So we gapped above this value area right here. Okay, I gave this big push up, and then it's like, a lot of times we catch those moves, and it's like, we don't realize what's really going on here. So this whole concept gives us a bigger paradigm shift of where traders find value, right? And so where was the value yesterday? The value's right here at the point of control, right? But an 80% rule says it's, has an 80% chance of getting through this range. We don't really, we're not necessarily interested in that range. We want to get to the next pivot, right? And if we get follow through there with some runners, great. And then we can get the rest of the trade. So we had, we gapped above this range right here. Then we had 2 consecutive candles here that tag that value area high right there. So there's your 2 candles right there. And just look for setups to the downside. Right here, you get a double inside 30 down with big upper shadows. I mean, perfect. Doesn't get nicer than that, right? Just with the price action alone. But if we go to the 15-minute chart, right? If we go to the 15-minute chart on this day, look what happened. Well, not only was it a triangle, but look what we got. Right? Look at this candle right here that closed below the AVWAP, and then we had 1 tick. I mean, you can enter right off the VWAP right here with a stop just above it, right? And then just ride this down. We get to the 15 or below, right? A little bounce of the cloud. Remember, the clouds can be air pockets right here, and then boom, look where it got. Right to the pivot level. And what else do we have on our side? The declining slow D, and the K was less than the D that entire time. What a great short opera. How much confidence is that going to add? It's just incredible. I love it. Awesome stuff. So that's Amazon. Okay? Let's take a look at one more. There was a few this week, and I'm putting those in the videos as well. Let's take a look at Roku on Friday. I didn't even see this one at the open. I think when we were going through it, I didn't even think about it. Right? I was looking at other value areas above. Look at that, almost like 2 mirror images of those days too. But anyway, we had a value area right here, right? So remember, we always look at the prior day and see where we gap. Well, look at this. We gapped right up there. We just opened right above that value area range. Okay, so this makes it a candidate. Okay, now it did bounce. It gave an incredible bounce off of the point of control right here. That was a great trade in and of itself for a quick day trade. But then, we go longer term time frame right here. We look at 2 consecutive candles here that tested that value area range. This thing's a short, right? We're going to look to short this one to a pivot level that makes sense, right? You can get short here off of this weak 30-minute candle and get all the way down to the value range. Mission accomplished just on that one candle. 30 minutes. Have a nice day. Range of that one at 4.5 points on Roku on a Friday. I think there's some momentum money to make there, you bet, right? So let's take a look at the 15-minute chart, see how we can get in, right? So Friday, what did it give us? A bearish go bar right here through a thin 15-minute cloud. You can get short off of that. Now, the only trick right here is, right, we got to respect our pivot levels. Okay, so again, it got through the thin 15-minute cloud. Now, yes, it did work to the downside, but I'm always going to respect these pivot levels, okay, no matter what. They're just so powerful, right? Because this could have given a lower shadow and reversed off of it. Now, bigger context, we're looking for a short, right? We're looking for this thing to go down. So what can we do, right? Well, we want to make sure our indicators are on our side, right? So at this point here, we did have a retrace off of the pivot level and the AVWAP to get down to the 15 or below. That's great. We could have traded that right there, and the 2.3 points off of that move. Just jumping in right here with a stop above it, even above the cloud. Good to go right there. But here the indicator, the slow D was a little bit flat. Now it started to work its way down. Before we got here, one more test, upper shadow can get in right here. And I love these dojis off of the clouds too. They're just so wonderful, right? But here's your entry right here, and then flush off of that thing. I mean, this thing was 231 and all the way to the pivot level and got a little bit of fall through the downside before they rallied it at the end of the day. Incredible stuff, guys. This is going to keep us in trades longer. It's going to help us find nice, clean setups, and it's going to get us very, very precise using our AVWAP as an entry, right, and making sure our indicators are, showing that that's where the trend is going, right? So let's trade in the direction of the trend. Let's buy a retrace to the AVWAP, the volume levels, and jump in it and have some fun, right? So good stuff. So let's use the 80% 2.0 to crush these trades going forward. I really think this is going to be amazing, guys. I mean, it takes all the stuff we normally use, right? And it just gives us a whole new flavor, a whole new concept, a whole new context, because we can see what's going on with market participants, right? They're trying to find value, right? It's not just price, right? Price gives us entries, right? Value gives us targets, right? Which is so awesome, and this method is just so cool. And I really think it's going to be a life changer for the group, for folks in the group, and for all of us. I think it's going to be incredible. So it's going to take this our trading to the next level. I'm really excited about it. So good stuff there. So that's the concept this week. I hope you guys found it helpful. And then from there in the newsletter, of course, we go through the IPOs. We look at some Fibonacci retracements and some interesting setups that are going on with those mostly tradable names on there. And then we take a look at the SPX. So let's go there and see how that's doing. Okay, so let's go to the SPX here. Go to the quarterly chart. and just see what's happening, right? So quarterly chart, okay? So we're working our way out. And guys, eventually we're going to work on a method too to get this working on bigger term swing trades too, using those value areas. I'm starting to find to put some pieces together on that too for the group. Very, very powerful stuff. Right now we have high probability overnights, which are working great. But a couple of these ones that we can hold a little bit longer would be nice. I mean, we'd love to be able to hold for a super long time, right? So that'd be great. Okay, cool. So quarterly chart, fresh all-time highs right this quarter, and look at that thing's turned green. Monthly chart, again, strong month so far, right? Weekly chart, possible doji sandwich. All the cautions, it could be a reversal, right? So at which point we might see that wave 2 down and then it works its way back up. But if it's a doji sandwich up, measured move, right, then that impulsive, that wave 3 starts to get really kicking, right? So we'll see. I mean, it's a minor ABC right here, but it can be contained by a channel, which we'll look at in a little bit, right? And we're starting to get an inflection point to the green side here on the weekly. So that's actually looking pretty exciting too, right? Here's your Keltner channels, right? Doji at the top, so watch out. Maybe it could be a reversal. We'll see unless it can push through it. Bollinger Band starting to expand again. So again, we're expecting potential movement here, maybe a test of the upper Bollinger Band. So we'll see how that goes here. And then we also had an inflection point here on the daily cloud as well. Increasing, right? So trending up right now on the upper Bollinger Band is riding the upper bands. And here's your Elliott wave, right? So right now we're basically still thinking this is a wave 1, ABC wave 2, possibly contained within this channel. Right, so let's see how that goes right there. Again, this channel is pretty tight right here, so and we'll see how it holds. Right, see if it can continue to work its way up and finish that impulsive move up for possible wave 3, and maybe get all the way up to wave 5 up there. If we break down this channel, then we'll assume the wave 2 is not done yet. Right, we'll follow that corrective channel down. We'll wait for a bounce, and we break above that channel. Then we'll expect our wave 3 up. Okay, good stuff. Market struggling at the top of the pitchfork. Okay, and but the big news is here this week, right, with the fresh all-time high, fresh trend line. So here we are, back to the trend line right here. Bullish to proven otherwise. Wouldn't be surprised to see a little sideways action. Maybe pull back right here for our wave 2. It might even, if it pulls back fast, could fill that gap right there. Maybe it pulls back there, forms a fresh trend box, but back over the trend line could be some good news. So good stuff. So there's the SPX. So let's take a look at let's take a look at the VIX. Putting on the VIX. So let's see how that's doing here. So let's go to the daily chart. Okay, so daily chart is still below the 200 and the 50-day moving average, right? So the main thing I'm looking at now on the VIX, right, is to see how this slow K goes, right? Last time the slow K crossed over, right, things started to kind of get a little bit iffy, right? But right now we're kind of pegged, we're not pegged, but the slow K is just oversold right now, so it's just kind of hanging out there. It can stay oversold for a long time if it wants to. But again, a crossover up could be interesting. And the farther away it is from the slow D, actually, the bigger moves we can get, right? So we don't see that too often. We haven't seen that in a while. So, but ooh, right, once these things cross over, watch out, right? So that's kind of the idea there here on the daily chart. So good stuff there. And of course, the 60, we're below the 60 cloud. Okay, the only problem is that the IV is still ridiculously high, which means this entire move up, the market's been just completely nervous. And, right, it makes sense. I mean, we've all been, we're like, should I hold on my 401k? What's going on here, right? So, and there's a lot of stuff to make the thing nervous, right? You got the COVID, you got elections that aren't certified yet, and all that stuff. So we got that going on. So that's the VIX. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. Let's take a look at the Qs and see what they're up to here. So let's go to the weekly chart. So weekly chart, remember the Qs were pretty divergent, right, on Friday. They were going down when the market was doing nothing. Right, so we'll see, right? So again, a little bit of pullback right here, kind of increased volume, red MACD on the weekly chart, but it's still hanging in there. And we did close above the monthly pivot level right here. Let's take a look at the Keltner channels. Oh, wrong button. Trigger happy. Okay, let's look at the Keltner channels on the weekly chart, right? So off of the upper Kelt right here, but still in the upper channel on the NASDAQ. Netflix still just kind of chopping around here, right? It's I mean, that mid Kelt started to work its way down, the lower Kelt started to work its way down. We're below the mid Kelt right here, so keep an eye on Netflix there. Nvidia. Again, has a chance to give a big move here this week on earnings, so let's see how that goes. Let's take a look at Apple. Okay, so Apple, decent here. It's kind of hanging out in the mid-Keltner channel. Amazon. Closed just flat-faced right there on the mid-Kelt, so a very, very interesting move on that one. Inside week on Amazon. Roku. Lots of inside weeks here. Inside week on Roku. Facebook. Inside week as well. Tesla. So Tesla kind of hanging in there, right? So it's kind of an iffy week right there. A big triangle here on the weekly and the daily chart. So definitely something to keep an eye on Tesla too. And AMD. AMD, a little bit of a bounce off of the mid-Kelt right there, but didn't really get the kind of follow through it needed off of that strong outside weekly candle. So it got a little bit up on that one and then kind of back in the range there again. So from there, we take a look at the Dow and some Dow names, right? So let's take a look at those here real quick. Oops. Let's go there. Okay, so let's go weekly. So Dow was actually pretty strong last week. Look at it, hit 30,000 last week on the Dow. What? That's awesome, right? So it got pretty strong last week thanks to some names like Boeing and other ones that we analyze in the newsletter there. Kind of triangulating right here on the daily chart, but pretty decent so far. So good stuff there in the Dow. And then we go through a couple of those names, and then we go to the trade of the week, guys. The strongest looking name I can see out there, if this market especially wants to work on this wave 3 up, maybe we get some more vaccine news and keeps everything going. MGM. I like it. It's a nicely priced name, right? We can get some decent price. Look at that candle on Friday. Good grief. So look at here. So weekly chart again. Doji sandwich potential on that one. Good volume on that one. Obviously, a big gap up the other day on the vaccine news. What I want to do is just kind of show you this 30-minute chart right here. So if we kind of zoom in here, right? One of the things that we can see, right, is that we have these big gaps, right? We can often consider part of a wave 3, right? So here we have a 1, ABC wave 2, wave 3 up, ABC wave 4, wave 1 up right here, subwave 1. I should probably put a little 1 on that, right? So you can kind of see it. But anyway, a little 1. And then what we'll do is we'll look to see if it holds this monthly pivot level, right? Maybe give us a little ABC down here, and then we can catch the bottom of the wave 2 right there and catch a wave 3 up on MGM if the market supports it. But again, good pricing on the options on that one, so definitely ones we're going to keep on the radar. I mentioned a couple other ones in the newsletter there, and I think you guys will like it. And again, guys, I'm really pumped this week about this. The 80% 2.0 thrilled. I mean, the results have been phenomenal, guys. I mean, each time I've seen it, they've been at least a double on the options, even early in the week, right? And I mean, and the percentages I think go way up when we use our stochastics, our Fibonacci stochastics along with it, right? And the AVWAP, right? Because it gives us a low risk and a much higher reward potential on it. So, and it adds confidence too, knowing what's actually going on behind the scenes, that this price wants to find value through that prior value range, right? And then we can even see that when it doesn't work, a lot of times it gives us setups in the opposite direction. So I mean, it's phenomenal. So anyway, good stuff, guys. I'm really excited about it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and looking forward to training with you this week. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your weekend. Stay healthy out there, and remember your risk first, and stay safe so you can stay in the game. And I'll talk to you guys soon.